Much in India is said and done in the name of the Indian soldier. But when it really comes down to looking after the interests of the soldier, in particular the battle wounded soldier, how are we really performing? I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. Our focus today is on the new disability pension rules that have many ex-servicemen and military veterans up in arms. For the soldiering community, this has already been a long battle. Finally, there were a set of guidelines that seem to show the requisite empathy for the battle-wounded heroes of our country. But now, new disability pension rules released earlier this month have created a storm. In fact, they've also led to a virtual political war between the BJP and the Congress, but we are not interested in that aspect of this story. What we're interested in asking today on this program is an examination of these new rules. We want to know if, as a country and as a system, we are showing our battle wounded, our heroes in uniform, the empathy, the support, the compassion, and the respect that they deserve. Or are these new rules undermining some of those guarantees that, as a country, we otherwise pay lip service to? The ex-serviceman community is not happy with the proposed changes. They say that they discriminate against the soldiering community, especially when compared to civilian community. They say that soldiering, by definition, is a point of stress and unusual profession that should be rewarded as such. Let's introduce a very, very special panel today as we look at why these new disability pension guidelines are so controversial. Joining us first on the program is General Vijay Oberoi. General Oberoi is a war-wounded veteran himself. He, in fact, has been working for years now with the War Wounded Federation Foundation of India. It's good to see you, sir, former Vice Chief of the Army, an honor to have you with us. Also joining us on the program today is one of the most voluble critics. If you are on social media and you've been following this issue, Colonel Amit Kumar is with us. Colonel Kumar has been raising his voice against these new disability pension guidelines, and we'll find out in a moment why he is so agitated. Also joining us is one of India's most loved and respected battle-wounded heroes, war-wounded heroes, Major D.P. Singh. He is really the stuff that courage is made of. He's India's first Blade Runner. What we do not know is that he had to fight 7 years to get his due, and he doesn't want any other soldier to be in his position. So we'll find out from him what he thinks of these new proposed rules. And finally joining us is Ambreen Zaidi. Ms. Zaidi is from the Fauji community, but is also the author of a new book out on soldiers, one that looks at the Fauji community through a human lens. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. Major DP, I want to start with you and then I'll come to the others. I want to start with you because you've shown that a disability by itself doesn't mean that your life comes to a halt. You've always had a smile on your face. You've run marathons. You're India's first Blade Runner. You've gone skydiving. You've never paused your life. But to get to this point, आपको लड़ाई करनी पड़ी. मुझे तो वो याद है लड़ाई क्योंकि मुझे वो याद है that despite losing your leg during the Kargil war, you had to prove that you were in the theater of conflict and so on. Now, we had finally got to a point where we felt that finally sabko samajh aa gayi hai that you have to show a certain sensitivity on this issue. Now, once again, these new proposed disability pension rules are causing a lot of anxiety within the soldiering community. How do you see the issue, sir? Major D.P. Singh. Can we unmute Major D.P. Singh?
When we speak about disability, I feel that I have been able to overcome my disability, the various issues which I face physically, emotionally, personally, because of the training which Indian Armed Forces have imparted me. However, having said that, I have been questioned about my abilities despite disability, from the perspective that if you can do it, do you really deserve the disability pension? So that's the reason why for 7 years I have fought for myself. And in those 7 years, I must bifurcate. 4 years I took to get the judgment in my favor, despite being a war injured. And then 3 years were taken to implement that judgment. Now imagine I being an officer sitting in the Delhi, I could run around and do such stuff for myself. However, those soldiers and widows who are sitting in far-flung area, at times they are even unaware about their benefits. How do they run around? And these new changes have, to me personally, I feel that perhaps, I don't know who, but they feel the soldiers are expendables. They can go fight, get disabled, get killed, but when it comes to looking after the soldiers and the families, whether they are getting the correct benefit, the pensions, the dues, it does not make any difference to anybody. So this is very sad. These new changes which are there are rather progressively looking into the areas. I agree that there are some cases where some people have feigned. They say that they have feigned, but actually I feel they have not feigned. The system is so that they were forced to manipulate the disability in their benefit so that they can progress in career. Now I take one example. If a journal could lead the Indian army despite being his disability, and in the end fag and he could get the disability, there are two aspects to it. One, for sure he had the disability because you belong to artillery forces, and exposure to artillery bombardment leads to the hearing loss. There is no doubt about it. Second aspect is that if despite that disability he could lead the army, that means he had the capability to lead the army despite the disability. Then why do have such MS policy where they debar officers? There are Veer Chakras who have been debarred from progression after colonel. So there is some gap which I had suggested time and again to the authorities that let's plug the gap and not the ability. If there are people who have manipulated for their own favor, that means something is wrong in the policy, not in the disability arena, but in the promotional arena, in the success arena.
Yeah.
And as far as the medical people are concerned, if they are saying that there are people who are able to manipulate it for their favor, that means they are rather raising question on their own ability. That means there are people like me can go in front of a doctor and tell him ki yaar, you do something for my favor, you can manipulate the medical science according to me. So that is very, very, embarrassing for all of us, that how is it possible that you can feign and you can manipulate system for yourself.
Okay, so I think a lot of people, all of you are from the 4G world, you know what I'm talking about, but a lot of people in the audience may not know what the changes are. Some of them are playing on our screen, but can I ask Colonel Amit Kumar to take us through some of these changes? Now, there is a phrase, can we slow down on these changes? Please, can we slow down so we can look at them one by one? There is a phrase called impairment relief. Impairment relief. That is replacing, a traditional understanding of disability pensions. Can you explain why this is so problematic, Colonel Amit Kumar?
Ma'am, initially the pension regulation was of 2008. It was defining the disability in a proper manner, battle casualty, the whatever injuries you were used to get during the time of the battle operations or at the peacetime. Now, what has happened? I'm just talking about the changes. What changes they have got? With these changes which are coming up, it is nothing. It is only that they are changing the disability word with the word disability impairment relief. Man, when you say impairment relief, that word disability goes, and then it is going to affect the pension. There are other things which affect the taxes which they used to get. Now, all the injuries are like, there are some diseases which you have suffered during the high altitude areas, or serving the extreme cold climatic conditions, or any other conditions wherein soldiers are going. While coming back, they have got a ramification, long ramification. After 10 years it occurs, or after 11 years it occurs, or after 7 years it occurs. What is happening by this new policy? Suppose a person with a hypertension or diabetes, with the stress and the strain of the services, he is developing that disease. Now with this new this thing, that percentage has been degraded to that 5 to 6%, which was initially it was 30% for the hypertension, 20% for the diabetes. I'm just talking about these diseases which you have in you while performing your duties, while following the routines, while having the meal or not having the meal, or sometimes you are just having you are just not getting the things on time. These are the things which are going to affect a soldier in the long run, and that is why these disabilities were properly medically checked, and there was a scientific studies on this. Today, when I see the disability policy along with the guidelines which have been given by them in 2023, on what basis they have made these guidelines? Where are the which scientific studies are telling them to degrade this thing from 30 to 6%? There was a reason, medical reason. Now I spoke to many medical officers also. There have been a pressure. There have been a long listing on the exchequer that I know, because of which they have come to this proposal. Give one time this thing relief to them, and then thereafter nobody will be asking for the disability pension. It is a very important aspect. We have to see each and every point which are there in the policy. In this policy, there is the manner the impairment relief has been placed
Okay.
at that.
Let's not lose the general audience to technicalities. If you had to pick up one thing that is problematic with these new rules, one thing, Colonel Kumar, briefly, what would it be?
One thing is the percentage. I'll just say the percentage of disability. Suppose a broad banding, I'll just give an example. Initial stage, if you've got a 3 disabilities with you, 30, A category, B category 20, 10 category, they have put it in a formula. Now, a person who is having these 3 disabilities used to get a broad banding. Suppose 30 plus 20 plus 10, it is 60%. Now, if you go with this formula, it will reduce to 50%. Then broad banding effect, suppose he is getting a 51, that 51 goes to 75%. But now that 75 will remain to 50.
Okay.
Because of this 49.6% due to this formula. There are other aspects also. There are many things.
Can I first just bring in General Oberoi? General Oberoi, as a war-wounded hero, a military veteran, the senior-most officer on this program, one of our senior-most officers, in fact, in our history. So, General Oberoi, how do you see what's happening?
I think it's a most regressive step, but I'm not surprised because this Ministry of Defense, and particularly the present government, has not been at all favorable to the armed forces. They only talk, and when it comes to implementation, they do not implement it or implement it in such a way that it is regressive for the bulk of the armed forces. Now, coming to the disabled people, let the audience be clear first that there are 2 kinds of disabled categories in the armed forces. One is those who were disabled in war or in a war-like situation. For example, India-Pakistan war or counterinsurgency or any such thing. The other is for service rendered in very unhospitable areas, very difficult areas, in all kinds of weathers and so on. And yet, the persons who are disabled are not disheartened. The persons who are disabled want their rights to be protected. That's all. I think
Yes.
we must go back because there are so many subjects, so many letters and policies which have been made that they are most confusing to everybody.
Yes.
But the source of this is that there was, after a lot of hard work by many people, the Act for the Disabled in India was passed. I think it was in 1995, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Now, that act is a very good act. Excellent act. Goes into many details. Yet, as far as the armed forces are concerned, it is not applicable to them. Surprise, surprise. That act is applicable to everybody, whether he's in a job, whether he is doing his own business, whether he is old or young educated or uneducated, whatever. But as far as the armed forces are concerned, it is not applicable to them because I believe the Ministry of Defense at that point of time went to the Ministry of Welfare, which was formulating this act, and said that the armed forces should be kept out. We will deal with them. Now, the way they are dealing with us is the wrong way of doing things. The correct way was that a similar act adjusted to the how we work should
Yes.
have been brought out. But
So basically, sir, you're saying that the armed forces needed their own disability legislation.
yes,
If I can ask you, sir, you said that what the changes are very regressive. Now, some
yeah,
of the changes are that cadets, trainees will get ex gratia payments. They will not be given a disability pension. They will not be entitled to one. That if you have what's called a lifestyle disease per these new pension rules, a heart disease, you will only be counted as disabled if you've served in an operational area or a high altitude area. Now, their argument, the argument being made in favor of these legislations, General Oberoi, is that the disability pensions were being misused, and that's what the CAG said. What would you say to those, somebody like you who's lived as a war wounded hero all your life, what would you say to those who are arguing that ये तो इसलिए करना पड़ा क्योंकि ये सारी pensions misuse हो रही है? You must have heard this, General Oberoi.
it is a misnomer. It is being spread just because they want to change the system and save a few pennies for the government. Now, the aim of the ministry or whichever government organization which is handling the disabled, both the war disabled and the others, they must remember that the first thing they must have is empathy.
That's right.
But this particular organization has no empathy at all for anybody, whether it's a war disabled or a non-war disabled. Now tell me, if you lose a leg like I did in war, and person B, army, another general, another colonel, another captain, he loses in a railway accident. What is the difference? Is there a difference between the two? And coming to this phrase, whoever has coined it, lifestyle disease, what a stupid coinage to make. What is lifestyle? Lifestyle is what you make your life to be. So to call a person with diabetes or heart attack or blood pressure or cancer, which he has got during his service, and the Supreme Court has gone on record by saying it, that when a jawan or an officer or a cadet, when he was selected to join the Army, Navy, and Air Force, he was tested by a medical board and was given a
Yes.
fitness certificate. Thereafter, if he has fallen sick, if he has been injured, if he has fought in a battle and got wounds, that is because of the service which he has rendered and is
Yeah.
rendering in the army.
I want to pick up something you've said. You've said it should make no difference if you lost your leg in war and somebody else lost it in an accident, as long as both of you have lost it while in service. That is at the heart of this debate. Let me actually bring in Ambreen. Ambreen, you have of course written a book looking at the lives of soldiers, and there's a lot of lack of empathy among civilians who don't understand what a soldier goes through. We're already at a point where today, down the generations, you're trying to make the armed forces an attractive proposition for young people. You already, it's a service that you do for izzat, for honor. You don't do it for the money. But if you're going to be treated without empathy, without that izzat, why will people will become cynical? Amreen.
Yes, Barkha. The book that you mentioned is actually totally is on disabled soldiers, because somehow, somewhere I felt 70 to 80% of our armed janta doesn't even know what a disabled soldier is, what he goes through on a daily basis, his struggles, his sacrifices. There's so many of them who need two caretakers to take care of them. Hiring a caretaker, getting their medicines, getting their food, and taking help in walking, going to the washroom, all these daily habits which we find them to be very comfortable are a major task for them. And we have to they have to fight for this. They have to fight for their disability benefits, rather than we should have created a system where they were given their benefits, their dues on their own, depending on the percentage of the disability that they had. I have felt very, very sorry when I had heard. I always felt that thing about Major DP fighting it out for 7 years was a rumor. And when I met him and I asked him, this was my first question to him: this can't be true. This can't be true, Major DP, that you fought for 7 years. But he said his answer was, yes, it was 7 years, 4 years in the court and 3 years for the implementation. So Barkha, I would say कि कुछ दिन तो बिताइए disabled soldiers के साथ, तभी आपको उनकी परेशानी, उनकी problems, उनकी sacrifices, plus उनकी families की sacrifices समझ में आएंगे.
पर अमरीन, you're a military spouse, और आपने जैसे कहा कि आपकी जो किताब है वो बिल्कुल disabled soldiers पर ही है. अगर आपको एक चीज कन्वे करनी हो about the large now growing community of those who have battle wounds, who have some or the other disability that they've acquired in service, तो आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
Respect them. Create awareness about them, so that they don't have to go to courts for their benefits. They have lost their limbs, they've lost their body parts for saving, protecting our country. All we can do is just give them respect. उनको चक्कर नहीं लगाने पड़े कोर्ट्स के और MOD के और CDA के अपने benefits के लिए. That's the least we can do, Barkha.
Ji. Before I come to Major DP, Colonel Amit Kumar, you said the percentage of disability, and I was kind of lost in the technicality of that. पहले आप मुझे एक दो तीन मोटी बातें बताइए. Am I correct in assuming that I beg your pardon, cadets and trainees are no longer entitled to disability pension? Is that correct? Because that's what the ex-servicemen associations are saying.
Yes, absolutely correct. Now, what they have given a relief type something for a cadet, that they will get either one time. There's not many confusion. Since initial there was nothing for the cadet. If a cadet he used to come, then there used to be a different thing. Like for a cadet, if he gets something during his training, he was never being considered for such thing. Now they have written one paragraph which I have just gone through in the policy only itself. But over and out, if you see everything, the conclusion is still that is subject to the clarification or by the competent authority, which is again the dilemma. What I wanted to make earlier also one important point. See, a false narrative तैयार किया. What is that false narrative? They have a CAG का report. After that CAG report, they say that 40% of medical officers are getting the disability pension. They are manipulating the disability pension. That is where they are wrong. Everything is being given through a medical board. Through a medical board.
उस रिपोर्ट में ये भी लिखा है, उस रिपोर्ट में ये भी लिखा है, I have it up on my screen, और उसको बार-बार कोट किया जाता है. So I'm asking you about it कि more officers get disability pension than jawans, and more medical officers get disability pension than
This is what I wanted to clarify here. You know that?
Yes, please
clarify.
That is
what I want to clarify here. How can you say this comment? You have got a CAG report. Everything is based on a medical board. After medical board, you get a disability. It's a proper procedure. One side at the time when the court hearing is going on, you take a stand, medical board is correct. And here, after taking a CAG report, you are questioning the integrity of the officer. I am not in concurrence with whatever as the CAG has given in the negative form. Yes, there may be. Officer, how you are putting across, how you are giving a narrative, that makes a difference. You are creating a difference between officer and man. How? By saying that officers are, they are manipulating their disabilities at the time of the retirement. There are many cases. There may be 1, 2, 3%, but there are checks and balances itself in the policies. There are medical officers who are checking. By saying this, they are getting it, and that is why we are bringing out, you are questioning the integrity of the officers as well as the soldiers who are getting at the time of the attack. I don't agree with this.
Okay, Major DP, if you would like to add to that, having fought so many years of your life to get to where you are, now you see these new rules. You others like Major Navdeep, आप लोगों ने बहुत लड़ाई की to get the government, the system to be more empathetic. Now we seem we're back to square one. But government officials are saying that these rules have also been approved of by military officers.
Ma'am, firstly, I would like to correct here that the cadets never got pension in their life earlier also.
Achha.
And today the amendment is only for the relief. The only name has been changed. उसको पहले ये भत्ता बोलते थे, अब उसको रिलीफ बोलने लग गए हैं. There is no change in the monetary amendments what cadets were receiving. In our committee report also, we had recommended in 2015 to Mr. Manohar Parrikar, who were the most sensible defense minister I have ever seen in life, that these cadets are the one who got injured during the training. Had they continued the training, they would have become class 1 gazetted officer. So you can't relate to them, okay, now they got injured, shunt them out and give them a class B or class C type of a job, right? Some of those cadets are bedridden because of paraplegia and quadriplegia. So they are not, as told by General Oberoi also, they are not under Persons with Disability Act also. Neither they are being supported by the disability pension. I must tell here that if a jawan, from the day when he enrolls into the training, he starts getting his salary. If a jawan gets disabled on the second day of training and gets boarded out, he gets a pension. But because cadet is taken as officer cadet, and they say only once he gets commissioned, he becomes a real officer. So during the training period, nothing is going to get to him. So he is neither this side nor that side.
Yes. So you're actually saying,
right? There are cases where cadets are requesting Aam Janta that I am unable to move from one place to another if I can get a wheelchair. And Chief Minister intervenes and donates a wheelchair to him.
Yes.
The boy from Bathinda.
Yes, I remember that. I remember that heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking account. Amreen, before I give the last word to General Oberoi, you said it's all about respect. हम रोज कहते हैं.
I want to also add here, ma'am.
Yes.
I want to add here.
Yes.
You see, so the whole gambit which I have understood about these new rules is to save money. Let me please tell here to public that Indian Armed Forces, all three forces, are not business houses where you can run these organizations based on the profit and loss which they get to the coffers, right? They are there to defend you. A soldier or an officer gets commissioned or join army with the passion in heart that he will serve the country to defend come what may, when there is an external threat or an internal threat. Now, do you visualize a person who is joining army will join now onwards when he sees that if he joins as an Agniveer, he is not going to get any disability benefit. He is not going to get any pension. If he joins as an officer, there are regressive rules which has been given to us that in case you get disability or in high altitude area which is not attributable or which, as they say, is not a battle casualty, then the percentage of disability you will get so much that will not lead to pension. And if you are getting the pension, then the name of the pension is no more disability pension, it is relief. So why the change has been done? So that they can save taxes on the disability pension. There will be taxation on the relief. There was no taxation on the disability pension. So overall, it's all game of profit and loss. Now, who will join? How do you think that the country will get defended? Are there fools sitting like me or Batra who will go and climb the hill and get killed for the sake of those people who are not even giving them respect? Forget about money and looking after their families. How do you think that somebody will get motivated to join such organization? Do you really need a war always to come to a conclusion that army is required, armed forces are required? And
Yep.
let me also please request to our senior dignitaries, senior authorities, senior officers that please understand courage is not just always accepting whatever is being told to you by the hierarchy. Courage also means saying no when it is required for the benefit of the organization, for the benefit and morale of the menu command. Chetwood motto has taught us so. Where is the Chetwood motto they are following today? All these tweaks and turns which has been done in the new regulations, let me tell you, 20% disability is the minimum to earn a pension. Now that 20% disability for a cardiac arrest, for a cancer disease, they say that you have earned it because of your genes were so. You're genetically disorder. That is the reason after being selected, we failed to find during the medical test that you may become a disable because of your genetic disorder later on. So that's not our fault. We will tweak the role that if in case we could not find there is something wrong in your genetics, later on if you come up with the disease, you will not get pension. So if you are getting 20% for a cardiac arrest or a heart disease, because 20% leads to a pensionary benefit, we will reduce the pension of that disability now to 0.5%. I mean, how come these rules suddenly got changed overnight? Who is the man
Yes.
who is leading to this? What is his intentions? I want to ask this question openly to all the authorities who are sitting, who are my seniors.
I can understand the anger, and I want Ambreen to come in. Ambreen Zaidi, go ahead. One
A
second,
cadet,
ma'am. We need to unmute you. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, Barkha, when a soldier or a cadet, they join Indian Army, they don't have profit and loss in their minds. All they have is, service to the nation. Then when they need us, why is this profit and loss coming in? Why do you want to save on the soldiers? Why can't we protect and nicely keep us disabled soldiers in a safe place where they don't have to beg? This morning itself, Barkha, I got a call from a soldier who is also a part of my book, and he said, "Ma'am, abhi to samajh mein nahi aa raha. We don't know whether to save ourselves or save the country, because if we get disabled, we don't know what the future holds for us." So that's
Yeah.
that's disheartening.
Absolutely. And what will this do to the morale, Amreen, before I give General Oberoi the last word?
Right now, the morale is very low, very low. I hope the authorities wake up and take up the right call. I don't think anybody would agree with what is going on.
General Oberoi, you heard a very emotional Major DP Singh say courage also means having the courage to say no, to ask the questions, to speak when nobody else is speaking. And that is
Yeah.
what he is doing. Your last thoughts, sir. How do we create pressure to create more awareness of what is happening?
You see, firstly, the army hierarchy, not the retired community, not the veterans, they have to take it up. Nobody will listen to Amit or to me or to anyone else. They
Yes,
have
sir.
the authority. And earlier, it was always so that you never looked for that. We never looked how much emoluments we were getting. We therefore lost a lot of money, but we only looked at the bottom of the pay slip as to what I was getting. That's all. Because we had faith in our hierarchy that they will ensure that you get your dues fully. I'm afraid today the scene has changed, and the scene has changed for the worst. But I would request the hierarchy and those who are going to come up in the future not to get derailed and sidelined by these very I don't want to use the word, these people who are there for their own good, for their own money. They are the people who are getting money for anything more than what they should get. We don't mind that. But the soldier must get his due. The cadet must get his due. When a jawan joins, as DP brought out, he gets pay. When a cadet joins and going to become an officer and lead the army right up the line, he gets nothing. And they are giving him a dole now and calling it gratuity. But the civil government servant working in the Ministry of Defense, whether he is a lower division clerk, LDC, or he is the secretary in one of the ministries, he gets his salary the day he joins. When they go to the academy in Mussoorie, the IAS and others, they get their salary from that day. And thereafter, if something happens, they do it. And yet, you've been seeing these photographs where, along with me and my friends in the War Wounded Foundation, have gone to Bombay, Mumbai now, every year for the last 11 years to run in the Mumbai Marathon. Why? We don't get money.
Yes.
We do that so that the people know that you may have lost a leg or an eye or an arm, but you haven't lost your self-confidence. And you will prevail irrespective of what you have. Now, how to push this into the minds of these duffers who are sitting in nice bungalows and nice this thing and pushing files? They are file pushers. They are not the people who know, who have any empathy, who have any sympathy for this. One thing, and that has hurt me very badly, today, military-oriented families who've got 3-4 generations in the armed forces are not sending their sons and daughters to the armed forces. Why? Because of this reason. And therefore, unless we control it, unless we stop it, we will not be able to defend the nation as we should be doing, and which is the job of everybody, every citizen of the country, and not just those who wear a particular uniform. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for speaking from your heart with so much bluntness. If the mood in this conversation doesn't change the decisions of those who have the power to wield it, I don't know what will. I thank you for your spirit, but I also thank you for your anger, because sometimes I think, as Major DP said, sometimes a little dose of anger is needed to be put out there so people understand what the stakes are. Thank you very much, General Oberoi, Major DP Singh, Colonel Amit Kumar, and to Amrit Zaidi, who has a new book out on disabled soldiers. As you can see from listening to the men today, they may lose a limb, but they do not lose their spirit. That does not mean that we treat our disabled soldiers without respect. That is the bottom line. Thank you for watching. See you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.